Welcome to the 1-3 tutorial solving equations. We're going to start with 3 5-minute checks, and you will also be answering some questions as well. Number 1, name the sets of numbers to which the square root of 81 belongs. And you should remember this is a perfect square, which actually is the number 9. So the number 9 we know belongs to the reals. We also know that it is a rational number. It can be written as a fraction. It is a counting number, so we know it is an integer, a whole number, and it's also a natural number, so it's all of the above. Now you'll try a problem. Number 3, name the property illustrated by a plus 7 plus c is equal to a plus 7 plus c. If you notice, they're all in the same order. All we did was move the parentheses. And when that happens, that means it's going to be the associative property of addition. And the reason why it's not multiplication is because we have addition signs. You can also look at your notes, and you should be able to tell the differences between the different properties. Okay. Now you'll try a problem. And for number 5, simplify 2c times 3d plus c plus 5cd plus 3c, and that should be 3c squared. 3c squared. Okay. All right, first thing we're going to do is multiplication. We're going to multiply the 2 and the 3. That gives us 6. And the c and the d, so that's just 6cd plus c plus 5cd plus 3c squared. Then we're going to combine like terms. The 6cd and the 5cd will go together, which that will give us 11cd. And then we've done all that we can do, so we rewrite this with the biggest power first. So we have 3c squared plus 11cd plus c. And now we're on to the new stuff. The new vocabulary you'll see is open sentence, equation, and solution. Example number 1, verbal to algebraic expression. Write an algebraic expression to represent the verbal expression 7 less than a number. So in this case, what I would do is I would break this down, and I would start with a number. We don't know what this is, so typically when we don't know what it is, we let it be a variable like an x, a y, a z. It doesn't matter what letter as long as it's a variable. So in this case, I'm just going to use an x. And then I'm going to look at the less than part. Less than usually means subtraction, and then we have the 7. Now, since it says 7 less than a number, that means the x has to go first, minus 7. And here we just wrote an algebraic expression to represent the verbal expression. Let's try another one. Write the algebraic expression to represent the verbal expression, the square of a number decreased by the product of 5 and the number. Okay, so let's break it down. First of all, we're going to let a number be x. It can be any variable. Okay, so it says the square of a number. Well, that means x squared. Okay, so we figured out the square of a number decreased by. Okay, so decreased by means subtraction. The product of 5 and the number. Product means we're going to multiply, and 5 and the number, which we already let be x, so that means x squared minus 5x. The key to these is to just break it down and write it down piece by piece. Now you try an example. Example 2. Write a verbal sentence to represent 6 equals negative 5 plus x. In this case, every time you see an equal sign, you're going to let that be the word is. Okay, so we're going to start with 6 is, and we're going to go ahead and put in equals to, and we're going to say negative 5 plus, and we don't know what x is, but we're not going to put that in the verbal expression. We're just going to say plus a number. Okay, so all we're doing is working backwards from what we just did. Number 2, B. Write the verbal sentence represent 7y minus 2 equals 19. So again, we see this variable and we don't know what it is, so we're going to let that represent a number. Okay, so we're going to break down. We have 7, and we see that it's the product, and we can just say 7 times a number minus 2. And in this case, we don't have to say is equal to, we can just say is 19, and that gets our point across. So 7 times a number minus 2 is 19 would be a correct answer. Now you try an example. Now let's talk about some properties of equality. Okay, you should have seen these in geometry proofs, and this should just be a quick review. We have the reflexive property, and that means for any real number a, it's going to be equal to itself. So you can say 10 is equal to 10. You can say a plus 10 is equal to a plus 10. It's just the same thing on each side of the equal sign. That's called the reflexive property. Kind of think of it as like a mirror. You see your reflection in the mirror. Okay. We have the symmetric property. If A is equal to B, then B is equal to A. That means you can take these two and you can switch them around, and it's going to equal the exact same thing. So here we have 18 is equal to negative 2m plus 4, and all we did was take those two sides and we flip-flopped them on either side of the equal sign. So that means that negative 2m plus 4 is equal to 18. All you did was flip-flop the sides. Okay. Now you have the transitive property. Okay. For all real numbers A, B, and C, if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, all you have to do is take that middleman B out. That means that A and C are going to be equal to one another due to the transitive property. Okay, so we can see here 5p plus 3, that can be A, is equal to 48, which is B. And then in the next statement it says 48, which we said was B, is equal to 7p minus 15. That's a new statement, so that's going to be C. So therefore, we have 5p plus 3, which we already named A, is equal to 7p minus 15, which we already named C. So that is an example of the transitive property. And the last one is substitution. If A is equal to B, then A may be replaced by B, and B may be replaced by A. Okay, so for an example, we have if 6 plus 1 times x is equal to 21, then 7x is equal to 21 as well. So in this case, we knew that 6 plus 1 is equal to 7, and so all we did was take 6 plus 1 and we replaced it with a 7. So let's try some examples. In A, it says name the property illustrated by the statement. Well, the first thing I'm going to look at is, are they in the same order? Yes, they are. They're in the same order, and it's the exact same thing on one side it is the other. It's kind of like looking at yourself in the mirror. This is called the reflexive property. And these questions should be pretty easy if you memorize your properties. If you look at B, name the property illustrated by the statement. If 9 is equal to x, then x is equal to 9. Here we pretty much have the same statement, but all we see is that they flip-flopped places. Well, we know that's going to be the symmetric property. Okay, it's just like the example you flip-flop places. Now it's your turn. Next we have the addition and subtraction properties of equality. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So if you add 5 to one side of the equal sign, that means you add 5 to the other. Same with subtraction. The multiplication and division properties, basically if you multiply one side by 8, you can multiply the other side by 8. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Same thing for division. So A, solve m minus 5.48 equals 0.02. Okay, here we have to get m by itself, so you're going to take the opposite, so add 5.48 to both sides, and we get m is equal to 5.5. Okay. If you take a look at B, it says solve 8 equals 1/2 t to check, and then check your solution. Okay, so 18 equals 1/2 t. We see that we are multiplying by 1/2. So you can do one of two things. You can either divide both sides by 1/2, okay, and you get t is equal to 36, or you can solve it by multiplying by the reciprocal. And what that means is if I take 1/2 and I flip it to get 2 over 1, and I put a multiplication sign between them, that's multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, so I can take 18 is equal to 1/2 t, multiply both sides by 2 over 1. That means that these two things will cancel out, and we get 18 times 2, which is 36, which is the exact same answer we got a second ago. Your turn. Now we're going to solve a multi-step equation. Here, we're going to have to do the distributive property first, and we're actually going to do this twice. Okay, so we have 53 is equal to 3 times y, and 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6. And on the second part, we have negative 2 times 3y, which is negative 6y, and then a negative 2 times negative 1, which gives you a positive 2. Okay, so it's very, very, very important that you pay attention to that negative. Okay, that'll get you sometimes if you don't pay attention. Okay, then we combine like terms, so we get 53. We have 3y minus 6y, which gives you a negative 3y. We have a negative 6 plus 2, which is a negative 4. We're going to add 4 to both sides. We get 57 is equal to negative 3y. To get y by itself, you're going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. Y is equal to negative 19. You guessed it. It's your turn. Here we have a geometry question. For the formula of the surface area S of the cone, S is equal to pi RL plus pi R squared, where L is the slant height of the cone and R is the radius of the base. Solve the formula for L. So in this case, we're going to solve for cursive L, and we're going to leave the variables in there. So all we're doing is manipulating this. You'll actually see this in physics when you get to it. So we want to keep in mind what we're searching for. So we need to get rid of everything else. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this term here. And I see that I have a plus sign. So that means I'm going to subtract pi r squared from both sides. Now, S is not the same as pi r squared. So all I'm going to do is write this as S minus pi r squared. And I'm allowed to do that. But over here, we canceled it out. And this is equal to pi r L. Alright, so now we have one last step. We want L by itself. Okay, so we see that is multiplied by pi and r. Well, the opposite of multiplying is dividing, so I'm going to divide by everything that's not L. So divide by pi r, and what I do to one side I have to do to the other. Divide by pi r, and so my answer is cursive L is equal to big S minus pi r squared over pi times r, and that's my answer. This will be your last question for you to try. Now for the last example. If 4g plus 5 is equal to 4/9, what is the value of 4g minus 2? So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually figure out what g is equal to, okay, by solving this equation. Once we do that, we're going to plug back in. So let's start. We have 4g plus 5 is equal to 4/9. Okay. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is get rid of this positive 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. And we get 4g is equal to, and here we need a common denominator. We can write negative 5 as negative 5 over 1, and we see that we need a 9 on both denominators. Okay, so I can take the second one and multiply by 9 over 9 to where I get 4/9 minus 45 over 9. Okay, so 4 minus 45 is negative 41 over 9. Okay. Last thing we need to do is take g and divide it by 4. Here we have a complex fraction. So what we need to do is we need to take the bottom number, and we need to flip it, which is, and multiply by the reciprocal. So here we're actually going to take negative 41 over 9 and multiply it by 1 over 4. So we flip the bottom and multiply straight across. Okay, so we have g is equal to negative 41 times 1 over 9 times 4, which is 36. Okay, notice that is actually A in our answer choice. However, that's just what g is equal to. So that's not going to be our answer. The second part, we need to plug g into the second equation. Okay, so we're going to take 4 and we're going to multiply by what we just found by negative 41 over 36 minus 2. And whatever we get from that is going to be our answer. Okay, so we can take 4 times 41 to get 164. So 164 over 36 minus 2. Okay. I'm going to write this on a new slide with more room. Here again we need a common denominator, so I'm going to write this as over 1. Common denominator will be 36, so multiply by 36 over 36. We get negative 164 over 36 minus 72 over 36. And then we can take the numerators and combine. So we get negative 164 minus 72, and we get negative 236 over 36. And then we can reduce this fraction, and we should get an answer of negative 59 over 9. And if we look at our answer choices, that's answer choice C. Thank you for watching this tutorial on 1-3. See you in the next video.